Dr. Zarathul had been working as a doctor for 30 years. She was one of the best doctors in the galaxy. Her people, the Velkans, were known everywhere for being great healers. They had blue skin that looked like crystal, and 4 arms that moved with perfect grace. What made them special was their ability to feel what others were feeling. They could sense pain and fear from far away. Her medical center was on Nexus Prime, a huge space station where different alien races came to trade. The station floated in empty space between 3 star systems. It was neutral ground where everyone was supposed to be safe. Zarathul's clinic was on level 7, equipped with the best medical machines money could buy. The emergency call came in during the night shift. 2 beings needed help right away. They had been hurt badly during some kind of fight on an old mining station. The details were not clear, but both were in serious condition. Zarathul read the files as she prepared her equipment. The first patient was a Krathon. Her hands started shaking when she saw that word. Krathons were the most feared creatures in 17 different star systems. They were huge, standing 8 feet tall, with thick armor covering their bodies. They had claws that could cut through metal and teeth arranged in multiple rows like ancient earth sharks. But worse than their physical weapons was their nature. They hunted other intelligent beings for fun. No doctor had ever successfully treated a Krathon before. They were too dangerous, too aggressive. Most medical facilities refused to even try. The few doctors who had attempted it were either killed or traumatized so badly they never practiced medicine again. The second patient was from a species she had never heard of before, humans. They came from a small planet called Earth in a distant part of the galaxy. The file said they were new to space travel, having only recently developed faster-than-light technology. The human was named Jake Murphy. His job was listed as construction worker. He had been exploring the abandoned mining facility when the incident happened. Zarathul tried to calm herself as she gathered medical supplies. Her empathic abilities were already picking up something disturbing. Even from a distance, she could sense the Krathon's presence approaching. It felt like standing near a volcano about to explode. Waves of pure violence and hunting instinct washed over her mind. Her skin began to darken from its normal light blue to a deep navy color. This was an automatic response her people had developed over millions of years. When they sensed extreme danger, their bodies changed color to show distress. She had never experienced such a strong reaction before. The medical transport ship docked with a loud bang that shook the entire clinic. Zarathul could hear roaring echoing through the corridors. The sound made her want to run and hide. Every instinct in her body screamed that death was coming. Captain Torres led the transport team. He and his crew were wearing full battle armor, the kind used for fighting space pirates. Their faces were grim behind their helmet visors. "Doctor, you need to stay back," Torres warned as his team prepared to unload the patients. "The Krathon nearly killed 3 of my security officers during the rescue. We hit it with enough tranquilizer drugs to knock out a space whale, but it's still fighting mad." Through the transport door, Zarathul could see a massive shape thrashing on a medical bed. The restraints holding it down were military grade, designed to hold the strongest beings in the galaxy, but they were stretching and creaking under the creature's struggles. "How did this happen?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "We're not sure," Torres replied. "The human and the Krathon were found in the mining station's main shaft. Both were badly hurt. The human was conscious when we arrived, but he won't tell us exactly what happened. Says it was just an accident." Zarathul watched in horror as the transport team wheeled out the first gurney. The Krathon was even more terrifying than she had imagined. Its armored hide was dark green, almost black, with spikes running along its spine. Its arms were as thick as tree trunks, ending in claws that gleamed like knives. Its head was massive, with a jaw that could bite a person in half. But what terrified her most were its eyes. They were bright yellow with black slits for pupils, like a predator from her worst nightmares. Even drugged and restrained, those eyes burned with intelligence and fury. When they looked at her, she felt like prey being sized up for the kill. The creature's wounds were severe. Green blood stained the medical sheets beneath it. She could see deep cuts in its armor and what looked like burn marks from some kind. of energy weapon. Despite its injuries, it continued to fight against the restraints. Then she heard something impossible. Laughter. The second gurney was being brought out, carrying the human patient. Jake Murphy was awake and alert despite obvious injuries. His left arm was bent at an unnatural angle, clearly broken. Deep scratches crossed his chest and his clothes were torn and bloody. But instead of groaning in pain or crying out in fear, he was chuckling. "Would you look at that cranky fellow?" Jake said with a grin, nodding toward the Krathon. "Reminds me of old Pete's bulldog back in Texas, except Pete's dog had better manners when company came over." Zarathul stared in complete shock. The human was making jokes about a creature that had tried to kill him. The Krathon seemed just as confused by this reaction. Its roars faded to puzzled growls as it turned its massive head to look at the laughing human. "Sir, you need to lie still," one of the medical technicians told Jake. "You have serious injuries." "Oh, I'm fine," Jake replied, still smiling. "Had worse scrapes falling off construction sites. Though I got to admit this is the first time. I've been in a tussle with something that looked like it crawled out of a monster movie." Zarathul could not understand what she was seeing. In all her years of medicine, she had never encountered a being who could laugh in the face of such danger. Her people had evolved to sense and avoid predators. Fear was a survival tool that kept them alive. But this human seemed to have no fear at all. "Doctor," Captain Torres said quietly, "we need to get them into treatment fast. The Krathon has lost a lot of blood, and the human's injuries are worse than he's letting on." Zarathul nodded, but she did not move. Her empathic senses were being overwhelmed by the conflicting emotions in the room. The Krathon radiated pain and rage like a fire, but the human gave off something she had never felt before. Not fear, not aggression, but something warm and steady that she could not identify. "I don't know if I can treat the Krathon," she admitted. "My species' fear response is too strong. I might make a mistake that could be fatal." Jake turned to look at her, his expression becoming more serious. "Ma'am, are you the doctor? Because if you are, I think both of us could use your help right about now." His voice was calm and friendly, like he was talking to a neighbor over a backyard fence instead of lying on a medical gurney with serious injuries. Zarathul found herself drawn to that calmness. It was like finding a safe harbor in a storm. "Yes, I am Dr. Zarathul," she replied, "but I have never treated a Krathon before. They are considered too dangerous." Jake looked from her to the still struggling Krathon, then back to her. "Well, there's a first time for everything, I suppose. Mind if I ask you something, Doc? What exactly are you afraid of?" Dr. Zarathul stared at Jake Murphy, trying to understand his question. What was she afraid of? The answer seemed obvious. The Krathon was a killing machine. Its species had hunted intelligent beings across the galaxy for thousands of years. They were stronger than most species, faster than others, and they enjoyed causing pain. "I am afraid of being killed," she said simply. "Krathons are apex predators. They hunt other intelligent species for sport. My people evolved as prey animals. When I sense a predator like that, my body tells me to run or hide." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense, but can I tell you something? I've been around dangerous things my whole life. Bears, mountain lions, venomous snakes, angry bulls. Even some dangerous people. The trick is understanding what they really want." The Krathon let out another roar, but it sounded different now. Less angry, more frustrated. Jake turned to look at the creature with genuine curiosity instead of fear. "See, that big fellow there is hurt and scared," Jake continued. "He's strapped down, can't move, doesn't know where he is. If I were in his place, I'd probably be pretty upset too." Captain Torres stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, that thing tried to tear you apart. Our scans show it has killed dozens of sentient beings. It's not just scared, it's deadly." Jake smiled again. "Oh, I'm not saying it's not dangerous, I'm just saying there's usually a reason behind the danger. Back home, we had this saying, even a cornered rat will fight. Sometimes the most dangerous animals are the most afraid." Zarathul felt her empathic abilities picking up something strange from the human. His heart rate was slower than hers, even though he was the one with serious injuries. His stress hormones were lower than what she would expect from someone in his situation. It was as if facing danger actually made him calmer instead of more afraid. "How is that possible?" she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. "How's what possible, Doc?" Jake asked. "Your emotional state. You should be terrified, you should be in shock from the trauma. Instead, you seem more relaxed than I am." Jake thought about this for a moment. "I guess it's because I've learned that being afraid doesn't really help much. Fear makes you make bad decisions. It makes you panic when you should be thinking. I figured out a long time ago that if something's going to kill me, being scared about it won't change anything." The Krathon had stopped thrashing quite as violently. Its yellow eyes were now fixed on Jake with what looked like confusion. It was as if the creature could not understand why this small, injured being was not running away in terror. "Besides," Jake added, "I've been in worse spots than this. There was this one time in Afghanistan when my unit got pinned down by enemy fire for 18 hours. Or the time I was working on a skyscraper in Dallas and got caught in a tornado. Compared to that, this is just another Tuesday." Zarathul realized she was learning something important about humans. They seemed to have a completely different relationship with danger than any species she had ever encountered. Most intelligent beings developed elaborate ways to avoid threats. Humans appeared to have developed ways to face them head-on. "Dr. Zarathul," Captain Torres said, "we need to make a decision. Both patients need immediate medical attention. The Krathon is losing blood, and the human has internal injuries that our scanners can't fully assess." She looked at her medical equipment, then at the two patients. Standard protocol would be to treat the most critically injured first, which appeared to be the Krathon. But her fear response was so strong she could barely think straight when she looked at the creature. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "My hands are shaking. My empathic abilities are being overwhelmed by the predator's presence. I might make a fatal mistake." Jake managed to sit up on his gurney, ignoring the protests of the medical technicians. "Doc, can I make a suggestion? What if I help you with the big guy? I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I've dealt with plenty of angry animals. Maybe I can keep him calm while you work." "Absolutely not," Captain Torres said firmly. "That creature nearly killed you once already. We're not letting you get close to it again." "With respect, Captain," Jake replied, "I wasn't nearly killed. I got scratched up a bit, but that was mainly because I panicked at first. Once I figured out what was happening, things got a lot calmer." This was news to everyone in the room. The report had made it sound like a vicious attack that left both beings badly injured. "What do you mean you figured out what was happening?" Zarathul asked. Jake looked a bit embarrassed. "Well, I was exploring that old mining station, right? It was dark, and I was using a flashlight to see where I was going. I accidentally triggered some kind of automated equipment. Big mechanical arms started moving, alarms started blaring. It was like the whole place came alive." He paused, wincing slightly as he shifted position. "That's when our friend here showed up. I think he was exploring the place too, maybe looking for salvage or something valuable. When all that machinery started moving, he probably thought it was some kind of trap." The Krathon had gone completely still, listening to Jake's words. Even without a translator, it seemed to understand that the human was talking about their encounter. "So he attacked the machinery first," Jake continued. "Problem was, I was standing right next to it. When he saw me, I think he figured I was part of whatever was threatening him. So he took a swipe at me, too." "That's when you were injured?" Zarathul asked. "That's when I got smart," Jake corrected. "See, I realized he wasn't really trying to kill me. If he had been, I'd be dead. Krathons are strong enough to tear a person in half, right? But he just knocked me down and scratched me up. It was more like a warning than a real attack." Captain Torres looked skeptical. "So what happened next?" "I did what I always do when I'm dealing with a spooked animal. I sat still, kept quiet, and let him figure out I wasn't a threat. Took a while, but eventually he calmed down enough for us to sort of understand each other." Zarathul was fascinated despite her fear. "You communicated with it? Not with words, obviously, but you can tell a lot about what someone's thinking by watching their body language. He was hurt too, bleeding from where the machinery got him. I think he realized I was in the same boat." The Krathon made a low rumbling sound that was almost like a purr. It was looking at Jake with what appeared to be recognition. "See?" Jake said with a grin. "He remembers me. We're practically old friends now. Zarathul felt something she had never experienced before. Her empathic abilities were picking up a new emotion from the Krathon. It was still dangerous, still a predator, but the pure killing intent was gone. In its place was something that almost felt like curiosity. "This is unprecedented," she whispered. "I've never sensed anything like this from a Krathon before." "Maybe," Jake suggested. "Nobody's ever tried treating one like a person instead of a monster." The medical alarm on the Krathon's gurney started beeping faster. Its life signs were getting weaker. Whatever had happened between Jake and the creature, it was clear that time was running out for both patients. "Doc," Jake said seriously, "I know you're scared, but that big fellow needs help, and you're the only one who can give it to him. I'll stay right here and make sure he doesn't cause any trouble. What do you say?" Dr. Zarathul looked at the beeping medical monitor attached to the Krathon. The creature's life signs were getting weaker by the minute. Green blood continued to pool beneath the gurney. As a doctor, she knew that waiting any longer could mean death for both patients. But her fear was still overwhelming. Every time she looked at the Krathon, her skin darkened and her hands shook. Her 4 arms felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds each. How could she perform delicate surgery when she could barely stand to be in the same room as the patient? "I need to call for another doctor," she said finally. "Someone who is not affected by predator fear response." Jake shook his head. "Doc, look at that monitor. We don't have time to wait for someone else. Besides, you're the best doctor on this station, right? That's what Captain Torres told me." "Being skilled does not matter if I cannot function," Zarathul replied. "My people have a saying, a healer who cannot heal helps no one." "Well, my people have a saying too," Jake said with a slight smile. "Sometimes you just have to cowboy up and do what needs doing. Mind if I try something first?" Before anyone could stop him, Jake stood up from his gurney. The medical technicians immediately tried to push him back down, but he gently moved past them. His broken arm hung at his side, and blood was seeping through the temporary bandages on his chest, but he walked steadily toward the Krathon. "Sir, get back," Captain Torres shouted, reaching for his weapon. "That thing will kill you." "No, it won't," Jake said calmly. "Will you, buddy?" He was talking directly to the Krathon now, the same way someone might talk to a neighbor's dog. The massive creature's yellow eyes followed Jake's movement, but the struggling against the restraints had stopped completely. Zarathul watched in amazement as Jake approached the most dangerous predator in known space without any protective equipment, weapons, or even medical training. What she saw through her empathic abilities was even more shocking. The human's fear levels were actually decreasing as he got closer to the Krathon. "Easy there, big fellow," Jake said softly. "I know you're hurting. These straps probably aren't helping your mood any." The Krathon made a low rumbling sound, not the angry roar from before, but something that almost sounded like a response to Jake's voice. "See, Doc?" Jake called over his shoulder. "He's not trying to kill anybody right now. He's just scared and in pain, same as any other patient would be." "This is impossible," Zarathul whispered. "Krathons do not respond to other species this way. They are solitary hunters. They do not form social bonds." "Maybe they just never had the right introduction," Jake suggested. He was now standing right next to the Krathon's gurney, close enough that the creature could easily reach him if it wanted to attack. Instead, the Krathon turned its massive head to look at Jake more directly. The intelligence in those yellow eyes was unmistakable. It was studying the human, trying to understand something. Jake began talking in a low, steady voice. "You know, back home we have creatures that look a little like you. We call them alligators. Big teeth, armored skin, strong as anything. Most people are terrified of them. But I learned something working animal control. Even the most dangerous, animals usually have a reason for what they do." The medical monitors showed the Krathon's heart rate beginning to slow down. Its breathing became more regular. Whatever Jake was doing, it was having a calming effect. "The thing about fear," Jake continued, "is that it makes everything worse. When you're afraid, you make bad choices. You lash out at things that might actually be trying to help you. I bet that's what happened back at the mining station, wasn't it?" Zarathul realized she was witnessing something that had never been documented in galactic medical history. A human was actually communicating with a Krathon, not through technology or telepathy, but through simple understanding and empathy. Dr. Zarathul, Jake said without taking his eyes off the Krathon, what if you tried using your empathic abilities differently? Instead of sensing the fear and aggression, what if you looked for the pain? That's what you need to treat, right? Yao had never thought of it that way. Her empathic abilities had always been overwhelming around predators because she focused on the dangerous emotions. But Jake was right. Underneath all that predatory instinct was a living being in serious pain. Carefully, she began to adjust her empathic focus. Instead of sensing the Krathon's capacity for violence, she tried to sense its injuries. Slowly, a different picture began to emerge. The creature was not just angry and aggressive. It was confused, hurting, and yes, afraid. I can feel it, she said with wonder. The pain, it is severe. Internal bleeding, damaged organs, possible fractures in the bone structure beneath the armor. That's what I thought. Jake nodded. He's been trying to tell us he needs help, but the only way he knows how to communicate is through aggression. Right, big guy? The Krathon made another rumbling sound, softer this time. It almost sounded like agreement. Captain Torres and his team were still standing ready with their weapons, but they had not fired. Even they could see that something extraordinary was happening. How did you know? Zarathul asked Jake. How did you understand what others have missed for thousands of years? Jake thought about this for a moment. I guess it's because humans have to deal with both sides of the equation. We're not the strongest or the fastest species, but we're not the weakest either. We have to understand predators because sometimes we have to fight them. But we also have to understand prey animals, because sometimes we need to protect them. We learned that fear and aggression usually come from the same place. He reached out slowly with his good hand, moving toward the Krathon's massive clawed arm. Everyone in the room held their breath. Easy does it, Jake murmured. I'm not going to hurt you. Just want to see how bad that cut is. The Krathon watched Jake's hand approach but did not pull away. When the human's fingers touched the armored skin near a deep wound, the creature flinched but did not attack. Yeah, that's pretty deep, Jake observed. Doc, I think this one needs stitches or whatever you use for injuries like this. Zarathul found herself taking a step forward. With Jake's calm presence acting as a buffer, her fear response was manageable. She could actually think clearly about the medical needs of both patients. The Krathon has lost approximately 2 liters of blood, she said, her medical training taking over. It needs immediate surgery to repair internal damage. The human has a compound fracture of the left radius and ulna, plus deep lacerations that may have damaged muscle tissue. Sounds like we both need fixing up, Jake said to the Krathon. What do you say we let the good doctor help us out? The Krathon's response was the most shocking thing yet. It slowly moved its massive head in what looked unmistakably like a nod. Did it just? Captain Torres started to say. Yep. Jake grinned. I think he's giving us permission to help him. Zarathul realized she was about to attempt something no doctor in galactic history had ever done successfully. She was going to treat a Krathon as a willing patient instead of a dangerous predator. And she was going to do it with the help of a human who seemed to have an impossible gift for understanding dangerous creatures. Very well, she said, her 4 arms moving to gather the necessary medical instruments. But I want you to stay right where you are, Jake Murphy. If your presence keeps our patient calm, then you are now part of my medical team. Dr. Zarathul had performed thousands of medical procedures in her career, but never anything like this. With Jake standing calmly beside the Krathon's gurney, she found she could actually focus on the medical work instead of fighting her fear. Response. Her 4 arms moved with practiced skill as she began examining the creature's wounds. The Krathon remained still, occasionally glancing at Jake as if seeking reassurance. Its massive body could easily break the restraints, but it seemed to understand that the small beings around it were trying to help. The main injury is here, Zarathul said, pointing to a deep gash in the creature's side. Something punctured through the armor plating. I can see internal damage to what appears to be a major organ. Jake leaned closer to look, completely unafraid. That looks like it came from one of those mining robot arms. They have big drill bits on the end. When all that machinery started moving, it must have caught him by surprise. As Zarathul worked to clean and examine the wound, she found herself amazed by what she was learning. Not just about Krathon anatomy, but about human psychology. "Jake, may I ask you something while I work?" she said. "Sure, Doc. Fire away." "Your species fascinates me. According to our galactic databases, humans evolved on a world filled with dangerous predators. Yet instead of developing better ways to hide or run away, you seem to have developed the ability to understand and face those dangers directly." Jake chuckled softly. "Well, when you put it that way, it sounds pretty crazy. But yeah, I guess that's about right. Earth is not what you'd call a safe place. We have big cats that can climb trees faster than we can run. We have bears that can break down doors. We have snakes with venom that can kill you in minutes." The Krathon made a rumbling sound that might have been interest. Its yellow eyes were focused on Jake's words. "But here's the thing," Jake continued. "We also learned that most of those dangerous animals don't actually want to fight us. They just want to be left alone to do their own thing. A bear doesn't wake up in the morning thinking, 'I'm going to attack a human today.' It attacks because it's protecting its cubs, or because someone surprised it, or because it's hungry and desperate." Zarathul began injecting pain medication into the Krathon's bloodstream. The creature tensed for a moment, then relaxed as the drugs took effect. "So humans developed the ability to read animal behavior," she said, "to understand motivation behind aggressive actions." "Exactly. My grandfather used to say, if you want to survive in the wild, you don't just learn what's dangerous, you learn why it's dangerous. Makes all the difference in the world." Captain Torres, who had been listening while maintaining security, stepped forward. "But this creature has killed dozens of sentient beings. How do you explain that?" Jake looked thoughtful. "Well, Captain, let me ask you something. Have any of those killings happened when the Krathon was trying to communicate or ask for help?" Torres checked his datapad. According to the reports, most incidents occurred when Krathons encountered other species on contested territory or resource-rich areas. So they were defending something they considered theirs, Jake said. Or maybe they were trying to claim resources they needed to survive. Doesn't make it right, but it makes it understandable. Zarathul was now working on repairing internal damage to the Krathon's organ system. The creature remained perfectly still, even though the procedure would normally be extremely painful. "The pain medication is working well," she observed. "But I think there's something else happening here. The patient seems to trust us. That should be impossible for a Krathon." "Maybe," Jake suggested. "Trust isn't as impossible as everyone thinks. Maybe nobody ever tried the right approach before." As she worked, Zarathul found herself thinking about the implications of what they were doing. If humans could bridge the gap between species that had been considered natural enemies, what else might be possible? "Jake, what makes humans different?" she asked. "I mean, what gave your species this ability to understand both predators and prey?" Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking. "I guess it's because we're kind of both. Humans aren't the biggest or strongest or fastest animals on Earth. But we're not helpless either. We're right in the middle. So we had to learn to think like predators when we needed to hunt and think like prey when we needed to avoid being hunted." The Krathon's head turned slightly toward Jake, as if it was following the conversation. "Plus," Jake added, "humans are social animals. We survive by working together. That means we had to learn how to get along with others, even when they were different from us, even when they were dangerous." Zarathul was beginning to understand something profound. Your species developed empathy not just for your own kind, but for all kinds of life. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I guess so. We have people who dedicate their whole lives to protecting animals that could kill them. We have others who study dangerous creatures just to understand them better. Heck, some humans even keep predators as pets. This statement shocked both Zarathul and Captain Torres. "You keep predators as pets?" Torres asked. "Sure. Dogs descended from wolves. Cats are basically tiny versions of the big cats that used to hunt our ancestors. We figured out that most animals, even dangerous ones, can form bonds with humans if you treat them right. The medical scanner showed that the Krathon's internal bleeding had stopped. Zarathul began the delicate work of stitching together damaged tissue. But how do you overcome the fear? She asked. How do you approach something that could kill you? Jake smiled. Same way you're doing it right now, Doc. You focus on what needs to be done instead of what could go wrong. You take it one step at a time. And you remember that being afraid doesn't actually protect you from anything. It just makes it harder to think clearly. The Krathon made another soft rumbling sound. This time, it almost sounded like purring. See? Jake said, gently patting the creature's uninjured arm. He's starting to relax. I bet this is the first time anyone's ever tried to help him instead of running away or shooting at him. Zarathul realized Jake was probably right. In all the recorded encounters between Krathons and other species, the response had always been fear followed by violence. No one had ever tried simply treating them like any other intelligent being. Your broken arm needs attention too, she reminded Jake. Once I finish with our large friend here, I need to set those bones properly. No rush, Doc. I've had worse injuries. This big guy is more important right now. The Krathon's eyes fixed on Jake when he said this. For a moment, Zarathul could have sworn she saw something like gratitude in those yellow depths. Fascinating, she murmured. I am detecting emotional responses that should not be possible in a Krathon. Gratitude, trust, even something that might be affection. Maybe, Jake said. Those emotions were always there. Maybe nobody ever gave them a chance to show. As Zarathul worked to close the final layer of the Krathon's wound, she found herself looking at the galaxy in a completely new way. If humans could find common ground with the most feared predators in known space, what other impossible things might become possible? The human species was going to change everything. She was sure of it. 3 hours later, Dr. Zarathul stepped back from her work with a sense of accomplishment she had never felt before. Both patients were stable and healing well. The Krathon's wounds were properly sealed, and his internal bleeding had stopped completely. Jake's broken arm was set in a biocast that would help the bones heal faster. But the most remarkable thing was not the successful medical treatment. It was what had happened during those 3 hours of working together. The Krathon, who had been given the name Stone Hunter through a basic translation device, had remained calm and cooperative throughout the entire procedure. More than that, he had actually begun to communicate. Simple concepts at first, but real communication nonetheless. Thank you, were the first translated words that came through the device. Stone Hunter had looked directly at Zarathul when he said it, his massive head tilting in what appeared to be a gesture of respect. Jake had grinned at this. See, Doc? I told you he was just misunderstood. Now, as the three of them sat in the recovery area, Zarathul found herself part of the strangest conversation of her life. Through the translator, Stone Hunter was telling them about his homeworld and his people. Krathons are not the monsters other species believe us to be, the translated voice said. We are hunters, yes, but we follow codes of honor. We do not kill without reason. What kind of codes? Zarathul asked, genuinely curious. The strong protect the weak. The skilled teach the unskilled. Life is sacred, even the life of prey. We take only what we need to survive. Jake nodded approvingly. Sounds like good rules to live by. We have similar ideas back on Earth. Well, most of us do anyway. Stone Hunter's yellow eyes focused on Jake with what was clearly respect. You showed courage in the mining station. When the machines attacked, you did not run. You stood and faced the danger. Well, Jake said modestly, I didn't have much choice. Those mechanical arms were between me and the exit. But I'll admit, when you came charging out of the shadows, I thought I was done for. I thought you were controlling the machines, Stone Hunter admitted. In the darkness, with the alarms and the moving metal, I believed you were trying to trap me. I attacked to defend myself. And I swung that metal pipe at you for the same reason, Jake laughed. Funny how fear makes us do stupid things. Zarathul was fascinated by this exchange. Two beings who had nearly killed each other were now talking like old friends. It was unprecedented in galactic history. Stone Hunter, she said. May I ask you something? Your species has a reputation for being solitary. You do not normally form friendships with other Krathons, much less with other species, yet you seem to have bonded with Jake. How is this possible? The Krathon was quiet for a long moment. Among my people, there is a concept that does not translate well. It means something like recognition of warrior spirit. We believe that courage and honor exist in all species, but they are rare. When we find them, we must acknowledge them. And you see warrior spirit in Jake? Zarathul asked. Yes. But more than that. He showed me something I had never seen before. He showed me that enemies can become allies if they understand each other. Jake looked embarrassed by the praise. I just treated you like I'd want to be treated if I was hurt and scared. Doesn't seem like much of a big deal. It is a very big deal, Stonehunter said firmly. No other species has ever tried to understand Krathons. They see only the claws and teeth. They fear us, so they attack us, so we attack back. It is a cycle that has continued for generations. This gave Zarathul an idea. What if we could break that cycle? What if we could help other species understand what Jake has shown us today? You mean like some kind of cultural exchange program? Jake asked. Something like that. Humans seem to have a unique ability to bridge the gap between different types of beings. Perhaps you could serve as ambassadors or mediators. Stonehunter made a rumbling sound that the translator interpreted as agreement. This would be a great honor. To have humans speak for Krathons to the galaxy would change everything for my people. Hold on now, Jake said, raising his good hand. I'm just a construction worker from Texas. I'm not qualified to be any kind of ambassador. You are more qualified than anyone else in known space, Zarathul pointed out. You have done something no diplomat, no scientist, no military leader has ever accomplished. You have made peace with a Krathon. Over the next several hours, as they continued to talk, Zarathul learned amazing things about both species. Stonehunter told them about Krathon society, which was far more complex and honor-based than anyone had realized. They had art, music, philosophy. They valued wisdom and courage above pure strength. Jake shared stories about Earth and human culture. He talked about the human tendency to adopt strays, to protect the weak, to stand up to bullies. He explained how humans had learned to live alongside dangerous animals by understanding their needs and respecting their nature. Your species sounds remarkable, Stonehunter said. You have turned your world from a place of constant danger into a place where different types of life can coexist. We're still working on it, Jake admitted. We make plenty of mistakes, but we keep trying. As the day wore on, word of what had happened began to spread throughout Nexus Prime. Other doctors came to see the impossible sight of a Krathon being treated as a patient instead of a threat. Diplomats and traders stopped by to witness the first peaceful interaction between their species and the galaxy's most feared predators. Captain Torres filed a report that would eventually reach the highest levels of galactic government. The report described how a single human had accomplished more for interspecies relations in one day than centuries of formal diplomacy. Dr. Zarathul, Jake said as evening approached, I want to thank you for taking a chance on us today. A lot of doctors would have refused to treat Stonehunter. I almost did refuse, she admitted, but you showed me that my fear was based on misunderstanding. You taught me that healing is about more than just treating wounds. Sometimes it is about healing the divide between different peoples. Stonehunter spoke through the translator. I too must thank you, Dr. Zarathul. You have given me back my life. And Jake Murphy of Earth, you have given me something even more valuable. You have given me hope that my people might one day be understood by the rest of the galaxy. Jake stood up from his chair, testing his newly healed arm. Well, I should probably get back to work. I have a construction job to finish. Wait, Stonehunter said. Among my people, when a warrior shows great courage and honor, we offer them a place in our hunting pack. Jake Murphy, would you accept the friendship of the Krathon people? Jake looked genuinely moved by the offer. I'd be honored, Stonehunter. And hey, if you're ever in the neighborhood of Earth, look me up. I'll show you some real Texas barbecue. The Krathon's translated laughter filled the medical bay. It was a sound that no one in galactic history had ever heard before. As Jake prepared to leave, Zarathul made a decision that would change the course of her career. I am going to write a detailed report about today's events. I believe the galaxy needs to know what is possible when fear is replaced with understanding. Sounds good, Doc, Jake said with his characteristic grin. Just remember to mention that sometimes the scariest-looking problems have the simplest solutions. All it takes is someone willing to listen. As Jake Murphy walked out of the medical bay, whistling an old Earth tune, neither he nor his new friends knew that their encounter would spark a revolution in interspecies relations that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come.